let me quickly share the screen, and you should be seeing the Blackboard course website. So I created the class recordings tab, and if you go there, you'll see the Zoom recording for the first session. In case you missed last week's session, and you can kind of go go check out the recording. I introduced the syllabus, and I introduced a couple of major assignments. I introduced the digital project assignment, which also includes the digital project presentation, which is really the major assignment for the semester, and the digital project proposal assignment, where you sort of finalize your digital project topic. You also have the assignment descriptions under the assignment sheets tab. So you have the digital project proposal assignment description, as well as the digital project presentation assignments description. So let's very quickly take a look at the syllabus and schedule. So we are finishing up week 3 of the semester, and it's again okay if you haven't finished reading all the articles. You have the rest of the week to complete the readings and also complete the activities. I hope all of you got the email that I sent out on Monday. I will send out an email every Monday. And then today I'm going to introduce the reflection paper assignment, which is very similar to the response paper assignment that I have in all my classes, right? It's basically a response paper assignment. And the reflection paper assignment is just for you to engage with some of the ideas that we are taking up in class and you're taking up in your readings. Kind of think about what you're taking away from these discussions. And it also gives you an opportunity for you to have a more sustained engagement with a specific idea or a few ideas and get some feedback from me. Then for next week, you have this reading where, again, you click on the link and check out this reading on what is visualization of data. You also have a video on the basics of metadata. It's not very long. It's only it's less than 4 minutes. It's not keep your pet with you everywhere you go. That's just the ad. Though it is a good idea to keep your pet with you. It's almost like YouTube is talking to you, Carla and Sarita. So
companies of all sizes use BigQuery to uncover new insights from their data, like cost savings.
So don't get stressed out by the notion of metadata. This is just an introductory video, just to kind of give you a sense of what metadata is. And then also check out. So when I say check out as opposed to read, it's sort of suggested reading. It's a good idea to sort of go through that information, or at least check out the resource. And it talks about information architecture. And it usually, when I have something that I ask you to check out, it's a resource page that gives you access to more information, right? So you can have access to information architecture and information architecture concepts, understanding information architecture. It might be helpful to you to kind of browse through this resource, because I'm hoping that you're going to get interested in some of these ideas and explore on your own. On that note, the 2 activities that I have for you this week, building on the readings for this week, if you go to the discussion board tab, I hope all of you have completed what is Digital Humanities activity. If you haven't, don't worry about it. Go ahead and either email me your post, or you should still be able to. If it doesn't let you post because there's a deadline, just email me your post. If it does let you post, just go ahead and post your responses. So for this week, you have two activities, two posts that you need to complete. The first one is the Digital Humanities blog. So for the Digital Humanities blog, look through some of the lists of popular DH blogs. So you do a Google search, and we can do one right now. We can do the search on Google and just look at Digital Humanities blog. And so, you have all these lists that other people have created. You have the Gale blog and you have the Feedly blog. There are blogs listed, through university libraries. Miriam Posner, you've already read something by Miriam Posner from her blog, but, you can sort of check out her blog as well. So the activity is that you look through some of the lists of these popular DH blogs, and you visit one of the blogs to explore the conversations taking place in the DH community, and write down some of your first impressions in at least 150 words by 11:59 p.m. on Friday, September 8th. Okay. Think about some of the following questions when exploring the blog. Who runs the blog? What is the purpose of the blog? Does the blog provide a sense of community? What are some recent topics of conversation? Are the blog topics too technical, or are they easily understood by scholars of humanities with an interest in the digital? So in the sense that, are they using a lot of computational terms like metadata, terms that are not familiar to you? Or are the people posting on the blog sort of using humanities terms, connecting, to the digital world, but still very much recognizable to you? How long has the blog been active, and how active is the blog, right? Do you see a lot of people posting? Is the blog easy to navigate for newcomers to digital humanities? Are there resources to introduce people to DH? And then, does the blog provide information and resources for people to get engaged with DH and collaborate with others in the field? You don't have to answer all of these questions. These are some questions to keep in mind while you're exploring the blog, and there is no correct answer. It's just really your first impressions. Then after Friday, so over Saturday and Sunday, read and respond to at least two of your classmates' posts by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, September 10th. So I'm actually hoping that all of you will check out different blogs, and that way you can look at, other blogs that have been checked out by some of your classmates and kind of go, hey, this is really, really interesting. I didn't get to check out this blog, but, the blog that I checked out kind of speaks, I would totally check out your blog as well, or seems like there are some parallels, or your blog focuses on this and the blog that I checked out focuses on this, and it's kind of interesting to look at the different perspectives of the different focuses of the different blogs. This activity is worth 10 participation points, and you can post in English or Spanish, and that's because this class combines Introduction to Digital Humanities for people with an English concentration and Introduction to Digital Humanities for people with a Spanish concentration. And Dr. Vela Cordova and I are sort of co-teaching this class. So whether you choose to post in English or in Spanish, one of us will look at your post, and remember, with the activities, as long as you meet the requirements and you do your post, you get full credit, right? And then the second one, which is called What Can DH Do For Me, which is down here at the bottom, asks you to run a search on Google using the term digital humanities and some of your research interests. So I'm going to use Sarita. I'm going to ask Sarita to suggest one of her research interests, something other than digital humanities that you're interested in. It could be like, if Josie was here, Josie would so I'm sure say, cyberpunk, or digital game, or video games. Sarita, is there anything that you're particularly interested in?
The one thing I'm sort of interested, I guess, going forward into refining is I did my senior project over Vladimir Nabokov and how that relates to online bloggers, specifically within like the Lolita fashion and sort of like coquette trends.
Oh,
if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Let's see, Lolita fashion, right? I don't know what will come out. Oh, see, ball
Oh,
studios in
okay.
bigger fashion. So that's what I mean, right? There are already
Yeah.
projects that are in place, and you can change the terms. I mean, you can do. You said Lolita fashion. What was the other term that you used?
The term, it's sort of I guess, a niche internet term,
Right.
coquette and coquette aesthetics, and how that relates to the
Oh.
works specifically of Vladimir Nabokov. It's sort of this whole,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of explanation that goes into it. The sort of like short explanation is sort of this culture of women, young women, influenced by the works of Vladimir Nabokov.
Right. Now,
Mhm.
the thing that you want to do, like, look, any information that you're getting is part of the digital sphere and can be part of your, I mean, it's digital information, it's digitized information. But in terms of looking at digital humanities projects, as we are learning more about what digital humanities is, and that was addressed by the readings for this week, I want you to pay attention to some of the hits that you're getting through Google, right? As in an article on decadent bodies and coquette aesthetics. That, yes, it's a digital resource, but it's not really a digital project. I don't know what this is. Her campus. It might be interesting to sort of check it out. But a digital project is obviously it has an academic angle, but at the same time, it's sort of bridging the kind of work that we do in academia with the larger community. It's making information accessible. So it has this goal of exploring a research area and providing resources, providing information. So right now, I don't necessarily see a digital humanities project here, but the aesthetics wiki might actually be one. It might be an interesting sort of project. There is also the
Yeah,
Stanford Humanities Center. Yeah, go ahead, Sarita.
sorry, I was going to say that was actually a very big source within my project, my senior year.
Right. But the ball said
Yeah.
this one on Lolita fashion, that's definitely a blog. It's a digital humanities project, right? So immediately we can kind of see, and this is the wonderful thing about digital humanities and the point that was being made by Wendell Pies' article, which is the whole point about digital humanities is not to just think of the digital tools that are available to us and how we are digitizing information, but to think of how digital technologies allows us to re-envision uh, our research in the humanities, right? And so and because we are already in the 21st century and the pandemic has kind of brought home the possibilities of the virtual world and the challenges of the virtual world, uh, there is a proliferation of digital humanities projects. So as sort of Wendell Pies and also Kirschenbaum sort of point out, what originally kind of, even though it's been around for a long time, since the 1990s and earlier, and it was called humanities computing, early, like after 2002, when they gave the field, the subdiscipline, the name digital humanities, the discipline has been growing. But at the beginning, it still was kind of a niche thing. There were people who did digital humanities within, humanities programs in universities. But now, in every humanities subdiscipline, there are people who are working with digital technologies and digital tools and creating digital projects. They're using a digital sensibility to contribute to research in that area. And almost anyone who's doing research in that area, even if they don't identify as digital humanities scholars, are collaborating with or drawing upon digital humanities research in that area, right? You have to. And I'm not just talking about online articles, journal articles, but like you said, Sarita, I'm sure you had journal articles that you accessed for your research, but you could not ignore that wiki that you found, right? And so pretty much, I mean, I know some of my peers when I was getting a PhD degree who were working on Victorian literature were essentially looking at how digital humanities can contribute to Victorian, like research on Victorian literature, right? So and some of them have actually been publishing for working on digital projects for a while. So if you have somebody now who's writing a thesis on Victorian literature, at the very least, even if they don't identify as a DH scholar, they will be paying attention to what DH scholars in Victorian literature are doing, right? And so basically the two activities that I have set for you this week, they're designed to get you to explore what DH scholars or literature scholars are doing in the field of DH, right? Things that you need to be aware of. What are the opportunities? And also the different ways in which people are doing things, right? Creating a blog or creating a digital research project or just having a wiki. So Carla, I know, is interested in service animals. So if I now ran a Google search on digital humanities and service animals, and once again, I have no idea what I'm going to get, but let's see. So you have the medical humanity. That's a really interesting. I think this is an article, but let's see what it says.
Dr. Ani, would you put service animals or would you put service dogs?
Well, you could do service dogs or you could do service animals. So you don't run one search, you just run searches. So, if you, this is what I loved about the article by Paez or Piez. Let me pull that up. So if you go to the readings, something called Digital Humanities. I really love how he begins the article. Sometimes I find myself procrastinating by surfing the web. I like to think this is worthwhile. It's a way of clearing mental space and collecting energy for work to be done while looking out and enlarging my world. And so he's not, I procrastinate by watching YouTube videos, but he procrastinates by going to these blogs and reading these really short, sort of blog posts or articles on a topic. And it's actually now, I actually made a mental note that less YouTube videos of cats and dogs and more, blogs and, but that's kind of what I'm suggesting you do, which is explore even beyond what you think is going to be your research project for this class, for this semester. But yeah, being well together, promoting health and well-being through more than human collaboration and companionship. So this is actually an article, but the journal is called Medical Humanities, which I kind of now want to check out. Growing a digital humanities lab, story maps in the digital humanities, animals, beasts, and creatures. What is that? Well, somebody taught a class on this. Oh, that looks really cool. DHI and the digital humanities, service and assistance. Let's see. Let's do and service dogs. How service dogs communicate with their handlers, understanding service dog training with technology. Mad dogs and working dogs. Huh. I mean, it's not exactly what you're looking for, but that's kind of interesting. It's an interesting take on. So, it's kind of, we did find something. And it actually throws up a challenge for you, Carla. And I think it's a great challenge to take on, which is, what is the cultural or humanities perspective on service dogs? Because when you talk about service dogs, I'm sure you'll find, articles, research being done in the animal sciences, and also, in veterinary study, and, and also in the technical sort of field of service animals. But you're absolutely right that it's also a culture. There is a certain community of people. And so if through your research, through your exploration, you find that, look, there is a gap here. There isn't a project, a blog, or anything that looks at the cultural aspect, the humanities aspect of the community of people with service dogs. There you go. There is the significance of your project.
I really like that, because I think that's why it's so easy for fake service dogs to exist. So if it wasn't, it's something to be like, if it was something of significance, like of culture worthy or writing worthy, maybe not everybody would say, oh, it's, we just stick a vest on the dog and we could take them somewhere.
Right.
And that's what a lot of that's what I'm seeing a lot of people doing that are not within the community of the service.
Right.
And the rise of the term ESA has sort of done a number on that culture, I believe. I know plenty of, like, especially, students that sort of use the ESA label to sort of grant them access to these certain areas that are reserved primarily for actual working dogs, which isn't to sort of, downplay, the importance of an ESA, but I definitely think that there is a lot of sort of rules that kind of go in. I'm not maybe articulating perfectly, but I get the gist. The gist is out there.
No, absolutely. Go ahead, Carla.
I was gonna say, I completely understand. So legally, I don't have to have a doctor's note to have a service dog, right? But to go into my apartment, I had to have a doctor's note because that's what they asked for. I'm in Corpus, and I don't even think that's legal, but I just needed to not pay the $500 deposit. So I went in, asked my doctor for the letter. She was happy to write it. But when she wrote it, she wrote ESA within the paragraph or within the letter. She then referred to her as a service dog. So she uses it interchangeably. And I'm like, it's not the same thing. So even professionals are not, they don't, and then just, so yes, they're using the words ESA and service dog interchangeably, and it's completely wrong. And I think having an actual, like, I would like to create a foundation where people could go and say, like, this is what it is. I don't know, but
I'm really glad that you're having this conversation, because what I wanted to emphasize is, one is about the nature of the class, and two is about the importance of, the three of you attending today, and why I'm having the Zoom sessions. So when I envision this class, when I teach post-colonial studies, right, post-colonial literature and theory, my goal is to often introduce you to post-colonial literatures and theories that you may not have read about, during your undergraduate education. Because, you know, in our cultural studies program, we have students from different backgrounds. I think Sarita may have, you took the post-colonial studies course, right? At the
Yes.
level? Right. But then this one would be like more advanced. But my point is, there is a certain content and there's a focus, there's a theme, there are certain texts that I'm getting you to read, and then I'm saying, okay, here is an approach, here is sort of the historical background, and then, you know, from within in that area, in that subdiscipline, you find your research project and then work on it. But in this class, the content that the stuff that we are reading is basically kind of, it's to give you a better sense of what digital humanities is. But in terms of the digital project that you pick, it's going to be it's really what you are interested in. And also there will be some digital tools that I can sort of introduce you to, but you may be familiar with other digital tools, and you may be better or you may have a greater familiarity with certain digital technologies than I do. And in terms of number, you may be familiar with more digital technologies depending on your interest. My goal with the class is to simply give you the opportunity to explore what you can do with digital humanities. Right, to let you know that, hey, all the stuff that you've been doing on your own, that has academic value, and, you know, to introduce you to grant opportunities and fellowship opportunities and stuff like that. And so these conversations are really important, because it's not as if Carla is talking about something in my area of expertise and I'm going to tell her, oh, you're correct, or you should be reading this, or you can. Because this, just like you, this is something that I'm developing my expertise in. I've been working on it for a while, right? But it's also a field that's developing. And you know, we all know that when it comes to digital technologies, there are new things being added every day. There's still a lot of scholarship being produced. There are lots of opportunities. And then there are challenges. And so if we kind of get together and we sort of work together and we work collaboratively, and then you listen to Carla's project and you go, hey, you know, here's something that I can contribute, and you listen to Sarita's project and you go, hey, I really like your project, but when you're doing this, because you're developing your project based on what you want to get across, but you're also thinking about accessibility, you're thinking about how you want to make your project accessible to the larger community. I am part of the community. When I'm looking at that, I'm thinking it would be wonderful if you could explain this or make that a little more accessible. And now you're getting feedback, the kind of feedback that makes your digital project better, right? So this community that we have in the classroom, which is like a very small version of the digital networks that I want you to tap into, is absolutely crucial, right? You're going to get more out of this community than any of the readings I've assigned in this class. The readings are to just kind of give you insight into the different aspects of digital humanities. Like the readings for today just sort of talked about how the term digital humanities came into being and how they've been you know, how the digital humanities community has been identifying its goals, its values, right? Its purpose, the debates that have been taking place. That is also important, but that's just to give you contextual knowledge. The fun part is where you get to play around with digital tools, pick your digital topic, your research topic, and then work with each other to kind of, you know, see like, hey, what can I do in 3 months in terms of producing and something that's not going to be behind a paywall, accessible only to a limited number of people, and in the form of a very formal article, something that's actually going to be interactive and engaging.
Yeah, there's a little or something I kind of want to share just as like a resource generally. Are we all familiar with the Internet Archive? It's essentially like an open online. Is it what's his name? I referenced him the other day. Kale, I think, or I can't pronounce it correctly. The founder. Essentially, it's just a sort of general collection of like textbooks, literature, etc. But within that, there's a tool that I think could actually be particularly helpful, not just for my own research purposes, which is primarily concerned with internet culture as a whole. The Wayback Machine that's part of this the Internet Archive, and what that allows you to do is essentially it's an archive of the internet as a whole. You can search up any sort of like time period within the internet and kind of see what the posts were looking like, what these sort of essentially what the culture was maybe 10 years ago versus what it is now. And I think that's actually a really important tool that I'm planning to utilize at some point, and just sort of kind of throwing that out there as a like could possibly be helpful for others.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is great. And remember, this is getting recorded so that you can revisit this, but please absolutely make suggestions, because again, it's not possible for me to know everything. And also remember, my actual area of expertise is post-colonial literatures, specifically Indian English literatures, Indian English diasporic literatures. My interest in digital humanities began some 10 years ago. And I'm also, just like you, learning. And so when I bring in speakers, just as you get something out of the workshops offered by that particular speaker, I get something out of those workshops offered by those speakers. Here, what I'm trying to do is, if I've had access to an opportunity like a fellowship or something that I could do online and learn about new things, I want to pass that on to you, right? Now, my expertise also lies in developing research projects. That bit I can really help you with. And I am familiar with some digital resources. But absolutely, if you know of something new, something interesting, please share it with your classmates. So this is really fantastic.
The Internet Archive has saved me a million times over if I hadn't had access to a text or if I couldn't find it in stores. Really, there's pretty much everything. I mean, you can search a title and see who's already uploaded, stills or like what's been archived within that. So I think it's a really important tool that I feel like not a lot of, students are privy to, especially in undergrad. I feel like not a lot of people know the resources there.
Now, on that note, let me quickly share this information with you. I have, let's see, which one is this? I have this expert on digital humanities from College Station coming to our campus on the 20th of September, which is a Wednesday. And I know that many of you have your work schedules and you may not be able to attend, may not be able to be on campus the day she visits. But if you can sort of make some time, she's going to be here for the whole day, and we'll have a series of engagements with her, right? So one of the engagements is a workshop, and there will be, what I'll set up is either a certificate that you can get of completion of the workshop or a badge that will be added to your transcript. So after discussing with her, we decided that it would be best if she did a workshop on Voyant. Voyant is a free text analysis tool that's really easy to use, but it's also great. It can be great for your own research purposes, but it's also a great teaching tool because many of you are thinking about teaching college courses or teaching at the high school level. So it's a very easy to use tool that you can introduce to your students. And this workshop will take place from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. And right now, there's been an issue with availability of the computer classrooms on campus. So I have a room that has about 15 computers. So I'm going to ask you to contact me by email by the 15th of September to let me know that you will be attending the workshop. Okay.
Honey,
Yes.
is there any way for me to attend it virtually? Like, because in person is not really safe for me.
I know. Don't worry about it. I'll try to have the workshop in hybrid format. Okay. I just need to work with the Center for Academic Technology at the university to see if that's feasible, right? If you can't attend it and we can't do a hybrid format, don't worry, we'll have other workshops, right? And yes, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so when I have the test accommodations, I have somebody, like there is somebody at the Disability Research Center, does like the Skype and stuff. I wonder if like maybe that person could sit in for me, or maybe arrangements. I don't know. Like,
yeah, we can definitely explore that and we can figure it out, and we can try to come up with a solution that will allow you to but I think there may be a way we can make this both available online and in person. But also keep in mind, I mean, this is not connected to the class. This is something that's part of the department's digital initiative that I've been developing with Dr. Vela Cordova. There are some recordings that I can make available to all of you. We had another expert on digital humanities from CUNY, City University of New York, do 3 workshops last semester, sort of 3 presentations / workshops last semester. And it was on using podcasts in the classroom and blogging in the classroom, and mapping using MapGIS. And I have those recordings and I'll share them with you. Okay. Anyway, so this will be from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday. Just keep it in mind. I'm going to send this out to the entire this is not going to be shared with the entire university. This opportunity is only available to our students, right? And since you're graduate students in the Digital Humanities program, you get first choice. So yeah, let me know. And Carla, just remind me, and I'll work on making this available online in some way or another. Okay. And so her name is Dr. Amy Earhart. Yes, Sarita, go on.
Real quick. So you said you would need like a confirmation of attendance, like in writing via email?
Yeah. Just send me an email and say,
Okay.
hey, I'm available. I will be attending.
Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Also that day, depending on your availability, and you know, this is also for everybody who's going to watch the recording of this session later on. We are going to have lunch with her, so that you know, you may want to have like a conversation. And she specializes in digital humanities at College Station, and you know, she's a fantastic person to know. So we are going to have lunch from 12 to 1:30 in the blue room, and that's open to our students as well. So
Perfect. Yeah.
you can just sort of come and before you do the workshop, you can sort of have lunch with her and kind of talk to her and ask her about fellowship opportunities. And you know, who knows, after you finish your master's, you might actually think about a PhD in digital humanities or something like that, and she would be a fantastic person to talk to. Okay. That's the workshop. I told you about the lunch. And then from 4 to 5 p.m., she's going to do a presentation. And again, Carla, I'm going to work on making this available online. Okay. So she's an associate professor of English and also affiliated faculty of Africana Studies. But then she has an NEH Mellon Fellowship for Digital Publication, and her digital project is Digital Humanities and the Infrastructure of Race in African American Literature. So the presentation that she'll do in the Student Union building from 4 to 5 p.m. will be on public digital humanities, communities of partnership. So how you can work with the community at large instead of just being siloed, you know, in academia. And I think that's going to be a very, very interesting presentation. You are not required to attend all of these presentations or the workshop. These are just opportunities that I'm bringing to the department. We will continue to bring other opportunities, and you know, sometimes we keep our opportunities completely online. Sometimes we have somebody visiting campus. But Carla, I will definitely try to make sure that one or both of these are made available to you online. Okay.
Okay, and sorry, real quick, I need my readers, but I can't really see it. They're both the same day, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
and remember, I'm gonna send out these posters. They're finalized. I'm gonna send them out. This poster, the public digital humanities presentation in the Student Union building, this is open to the university community, right? And there will be plenty of seating, and so, Sarita, if you happen to be on campus that day, you're welcome to attend everything, including the lunch, the workshop, and the presentation.
It's good that I know right now so I can immediately request that day specifically off of work, which I should be good to go with that as long as I know this far in advance.
Yeah. And this is open to everybody. So Nadia, this is open to you as well. Now, actually, I wanted to ask Nadia, so we did a search on something of interest to Carla, and then we did a search on something of interest to Sarita. Nadia, what is your area of research interest, or one of the things that you're interested in?
I'm really interested in horror.
Any specific kind of horror?
Like slasher horror.
Okay. And slasher horror. Ooh, there you go. When the Woman Screams, a Digital Humanities podcast. Frankenstein Complex in the Realm of Digital Humanities. Exploring the, that's an article. Horror movies, Introduction to Digital Humanities. See, that's what I just want you to explore and kind of see, look, here's the kind of work that other people are doing. It gives you ideas. Also, the great thing about the Digital Humanities Collective, usually, and even when you read a journal article by some professor and you really like the paper and the topic, you can write to them, and sometimes they will get back to you. But within the Digital Humanities Network, people respond to you really quickly, and people are always looking to work with others, to form collectives, to collaborate, right? At least that has been my experience so far. And I think the reason why they are so interested in collaborations is because the subdiscipline is still in the process of legitimizing itself. I mean, you would think that by now everybody would have embraced digital humanities, but really there's still a ton of resistance, right? People go, what is that? Or people think, well, it's only for those who are actually interested in digital stuff. I'm interested in doing research in my area. Yeah, I'm not really interested in digital humanities, right? And that's something that Wendell Piles talks about, because his whole article is a response to someone who many years ago but not that many years ago, 2009, was sort of complaining about the fragmentation of departments of English into all of these specialized, and this person was complaining about ethnic literatures. This person was complaining about, post-colonial studies and something called digital humanities, right? So I think the reason why digital humanities scholars tend to be really supportive of each other is because they recognize that you often have people at smaller institutions like ours who don't have access to a lot of resources through the institution, don't have access to a lot of support, but are interested and are part of the collective. So there's a lot of sharing of resources, sharing of guidance, a lot of encouragement, and I want you to kind of tap into that community. Okay, so going back to the activity description, once you've run this search, look through the results and write a post in at least 100 words reflecting on what opportunities DH can provide for you and how you can use digital tools in your work. Okay. And with this, you just complete your post by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, September 10th. Okay, so here are the two activities. Once again, you can write your post in English or Spanish. So those are the two activities that you need to finish this week. And let me introduce the reflection paper assignment, which is really, you'll be really familiar with this assignment if you've taken classes with me before. It's really the response paper assignment. 300 to 600 words. Throughout the semester, you will write 4 reflection papers. So if you go to the syllabus, if you go to the schedule, so the first reflection paper is due on the 17th of September. Then the second reflection paper is due on the 8th of October. So the schedule will tell you when the reflection papers are due. The way the reflection papers work is if the first response paper is due, the reflection paper is due on the 17th of September at the end of week 4, you can write about anything that we've read or discussed, any topic that we've discussed in the first 4 weeks of the semester. And you don't have to write about everything that we've discussed or read. You can pick one idea or one reading. You can, and the idea is for you to work through an idea that was interesting to you, not just to summarize the discussion that happened, but suppose we had this conversation that got you thinking, and you can kind of use the reflection paper to build on that idea and work through that idea and then get some feedback from me. Okay, so it just allows you, and also you can kind of focus on an idea, or what you can do is you can kind of ask a broader question, like from the first 4 weeks, what is my takeaway? What has been useful to me? What has gotten me thinking? Okay, so it gives you a lot of freedom. It's just to make sure that you're collecting your thoughts periodically through the semester and going, all right, here are the key points that I want to reflect on from the first 4 weeks, and then the next 3 weeks, and the next 3 weeks. Also, I mean, do make sure to read through the assignment description. Keep the writing simple. Okay. You will notice in the wonderful thing about digital projects is because it's sort of bridging the gap between academia and the larger community. And because you have a lot of blogs and wikis, and digital humanities scholars issue the jargon that's given a lot of research, that's made a lot of research inaccessible to people outside the discipline, right? So the writing tends to be very simple and conversational. Again, case in point, the article by Wendell Piers, the way he sort of starts the article, just having a conversation and saying, look, I was reading The Nation and I came across this article by this professor who was essentially venting about the fragmentation of the field. And it made me think about, well, digital humanities isn't just a sub-discipline in the field. He makes a bold claim. I was actually going to ask you about that, which is his claim that the way to think about digital humanities is the way to think about the paradigmatic change that came with the Renaissance. Because the Renaissance was also about new scientific discoveries, new technologies, and then using those discoveries and technologies to reflect upon questions in the humanities, about our ethics, our morality, our philosophy, what it means to be human, art, culture. So what he's suggesting is the digital humanities impetus is to do something similar, not just say, oh, how are we digitizing stuff and how can I process data, but also how can digital technologies help me re-envision how I think in my field, how I approach research in my field, how I disseminate knowledge in my field. And it's a bold claim, but I think there's something to that claim. And that's actually a good point for us to transition into the readings. It's been about an hour. I'm not going to keep you for 2 hours today, but I do want to ask you, if you've done some of the readings, do you have any questions for me? Was there something interesting, something challenging, something that kind of got you thinking?
It's less a question and more just kind of like an observation.
Hmm.
I think it's a little funny that sort of, the conversation had in the Piers article, just the sort of like, I don't know, this sort of disparaging like digital humanities as being a little bit, I think there's this idea sort of present within that sort of rejects the idea of exploring the digital humanities. And I think to some degree, there's a little bit of academic elitism kind of going on there. This sort of, gatekeeping of, resources and knowledge. Because like you said, we're a smaller campus. We don't have the same sort of literary resources physically.
Mm-hmm.
It feels almost, it's an interesting, I think, point of discussion to maybe talk about how I think maybe classic academics might be rejecting some of these, I guess, concepts on the basis that they sort of, gatekeep information from the general public, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be an interesting argument to be had there, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's definitely, that's what he's addressing, which is this sort of implicit elitism. And, again, keep in mind the background of English departments that we discussed in both the literary theory class and in the post-colonial studies class. And Carla and Nadia, if that's a conversation that you're not familiar with. So English departments came into being as part of the colonial project, right? And one might think that, study of literature must be centuries old, but that's actually not true. When people studied literature, they read the Greeks and so they read the ancient languages, Latin and Greek, and But English literature and English departments were created for the propagation of English literature and the analysis and interpretation of English literary texts as classics of literature, the creation of the great tradition. This came about as a process of educating the natives in the colonies. Right. What is really, really interesting, and this is a historical fact, that the first English departments were simultaneously created in England and in India at these universities set up by the British, universities that still exist today, like the University of Calcutta. And the English departments in India were part of civil service training, because they were training Indians to serve as part of the British bureaucracy, the British colonial bureaucracy. And these Indians needed to speak in English. And there's this whole history. There's a very famous book called, what's the name of the book? It's... it'll come to me, but it sort of looks at the archives, and it looks at this history of the creation of English departments and this sort of canon of English literature. But the part of that idea was also to let colonize people in Africa. This is the process of mental colonization, colonizing the mind, to let them know that you are being civilized through English literature because you don't have a culture, a civilization of your own. And this sort of came particularly in the case of India, because India was the crown in the jewel in the crown of the British Empire. It was like the largest colony and one of the richest colonies. At the beginning, the policy was to promote the native languages and literatures. So there was a recognition that there was a native culture and native art and literature. So essentially, to keep the natives happy, the idea was to take a certain amount of the profits from the colony and put them back into into the arts and literature, the development of the arts and literature in the native languages, right? Hindi, Bengali, all of the native languages in India. But in 1832, there was a very famous meeting headed by Lord Macaulay, and it's actually called Lord Macaulay's Minutes. So in the minutes of the meetings, this decision was taken that from now on, the British government, the colonial government, was going to promote English education to civilize the natives, because native education, native culture, native law was uncivilized, was inadequate. And the idea was to create a class of Indians who would speak English and think like Englishmen, who would be the translators between the native population, who was uneducated because they couldn't speak English, and the British colonial government, right? And this is the same policy that was implemented in British colonies in Africa, Malaysia, Indonesia, but also French colonies, all over the world. And that's why, in Nigeria, in Kenya, a lot of school education and university education is in English. So much so, if you go to, I can show this to you. This is really, really interesting. If you go to our graduate admissions policies, and then you look at international students, and then what you will need to submit, English proficiency exams. So you have to take test of English as foreign language, but this section, it says students who have completed their entire formal education at the secondary or post-secondary level in the following countries are exempt from the test of English as foreign language requirement. And of course, it includes Puerto Rico, American Samoa, but look at all the African nations that are included: Ghana, Nigeria. I don't know if Kenya is included. But the reason why these African nations, so if you're from Nigeria, you don't have to, it's because of that colonial history. Because secondary and post-secondary education in those countries, because of British colonialism, is conducted in English, right? So the foundations of English department, the foundation of English departments was always based on this purpose of promoting this idea of the civilizational value of English literature, however it is defined. And originally it meant British literature, but then in the United States, you had this whole process of defining an American identity, right? So this association of literature and culture with national identity. So you had American literature and the promotion of American literature. And then later on, you have Indian English and Nigerian English and all of that. But there is definitely this idea that, well, the reason why English literature departments exist is to promote. Now, this is not necessarily true of all English departments, but it's like, the idea of the original sin. It's always there at the foundational level. And then what we try to do, like, when the canon was exploded, when English departments started incorporating ethnic literatures, right? So English departments started hiring people to teach Hispanic American, Chicanx American, Chicanx literatures, African American literatures, Chinese American, Asian American literatures, or even African literatures in English. Like, I was hired to teach global Anglophone literatures, right? Digital humanities, exactly all of the things that professor is complaining about. That idea was to then re-envision what we do in the English department.
It sort of makes me feel like there's like a decolonization sort of happening, especially with the, universal, I guess, use of English in other countries. I can understand why classics might be pretty adverse to the idea.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's really intriguing, actually, especially now as it extends to the internet as sort of like a cultural, melting pot, really, in the sense that, that it's really interesting. I think I might actually kind of do some independent reading on that myself.
Yeah, so the book that I was telling you about, I'll put it in the chat box, is written by Gauri Vishwanathan. And let me just look up Gauri Vishwanathan. I have the book. I don't know why. Masks of Conquest. That's the name of the book. Masks of Conquest. So yeah, it's a very interesting sort of history. But again, keep in mind, English departments, and that's what Pius is saying, that in order to, it wasn't just about, how do we market ourselves, but as you said, a process of decolonization and decolonization to reflect on our mission and go, okay, how can we contribute to the humanities without serving this sort of foundational colonial purpose? And that's part of the re-envisioning process. But you're absolutely right. For some people who were very comfortable and complacent in that old sort of, structure, were very, very unhappy. And what is really interesting is this. I'm pretty sure the article that Pius is responding to, when was that? When did that come out? In 2008. So we're not talking even 20, 30 years ago. Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's, kind of insane, not really insane per se, but sort of how rapid these changes and sort of like, because again, with the rise of the internet, it's not the same. Because you mentioned, like the Renaissance, where you think of like a timeline of maybe, what, 500, a number of years in between, whereas we're seeing this rapid sort of growth, especially via internet. It's sort of narrowing that timeline quite a bit in a way that's, I can understand, again, sort of feeling rapidly out of touch with your field with these advancements.
Absolutely. And also keep in mind that even though we talk about the American university system, and there are certain things that we take for granted, we say that, these should be common in the curriculum across the United States at the level of higher education. But the reality is, I was hired in 2016, and I was the first person hired by this department to teach global Anglophone or world literatures as part of our department's re-envisioning of the department's purpose. And we used to have these conversations about, absolutely, we should teach Shakespeare, but should Shakespeare be absolutely required for anybody to get a degree in English? Right. That is, there's one thing to make Shakespeare a choice, and a lot of people would take Shakespeare because they would be, but to say you cannot get a degree in English without taking Shakespeare. But that was where we drew the line, and saying, okay, fine, Shakespeare has to be a requirement. But the questions that we grappled with was, is a course in 18th century Brit Lit a requirement, 19th century Brit Lit, 20th century Brit Lit, or should we give students the flexibility to make their choices? Right. And so we had those conversations. Now, keep in mind, even today, we don't have somebody teaching African American literature or Asian American literature, and it has to do with the size of the university and what the lines that we get for hire. Now, you might say, okay, at some other institutions, at larger institutions, they've gone through this process of deconstruction. They have created ethnic studies programs, women and gender studies programs. They have created race and ethnicity programs. They've, they've hired in all of these different areas. They've explored the deconstruction of the canon in all of these different ways. And then in the process today, now they have digital humanities programs, and they have. Are we supposed to wait until we go through the whole process? Or, as Sarita sort of said, hey, given given the background of a majority of our students, and the reality is a lot of our students come from working class backgrounds, and they're first generation. Many of them are paying their way through college, even at the undergraduate level. Also, books and print can be prohibitively expensive, like the course materials required. We start embracing digital technologies, accessing journal articles, but also getting published in journal articles. A lot of our students are told that they do not know how to write, which is nonsense. It's just that they don't write in the style that is promoted at tier one, resource one institutions, right? It's a style. And the reason why our students don't write in that style is, again, you'd have to look at the resources available in the counties, in the schools, the whole issue of marginalization of South Texas, the way South Texas is sort of seen as, let's read Gloria Anzaldua's Borderlands. We'll have that's a fantastic introduction to what's happened to this region. The point is, we know for a fact that people here have a lot to contribute. And if they go, hey, I want to work with my community as opposed to contribute to an academic journal. And there are some academic journals that honestly go through the peer review process. But with a lot of academic journals, and if you belong to the network, they will tell you that, oh, the publication process is completely in-house. That is, they have their own people. All the articles that are coming out, they reach out to their network and they go, Carla, would you like to contribute a piece? Right. You have to be connected. But our students might go, hey, I'm not going to go wait through that whole process of deconstruction. I'm going to embrace digital technologies. I'm going to look for funding that's available to minority serving institutions and funding that's set aside for digital humanities, particularly because what we are trying to do is we are trying to re-envision the way we do research by connecting to the community. The presentation by Amy Earhart on public digital humanities, public digital communities. And that's how I want to think of my future profession. That's the kind of work I want to do in the future. Right. As Sarita said, there are people who are not going to be happy with that. They're going to be like, yeah, I'm sorry, but you still can't write and you still don't have a thing in Shakespeare and you still, you haven't paid your dues. We don't want to pay our dues. We have to, because if we want to compete in that landscape, that geo-academic landscape, we will always be marginalized.
Yeah, and I think and this is my opinion as someone who's kind of, been through the K-12 teaching, teaching in the K-12 system. I think largely, especially in the US, with how, and I hate to say it, but we all have to acknowledge to some degree how poor our public education is and how much it's fallen, to the wayside. I think there's going to be a real big, sort of push in that sort of decolonization in the way we view, especially like communications within academia, because I think that a lot of students aren't going to have the classical foundations that many, that many of their predecessors had. Does that make any sense? And that's not to say necessarily that I think the intellect level is dropping or something, but I do think that the way that we communicate is, again, rapidly changing, especially within the English language. We have different slang, different shorthands. Again, the rise of internet culture, I firmly believe that academic institutions are going to be forced to stray away from certain models of, standards, really.
Right. However, as the other article, the one defining the values of digital humanities, right? By Lisa Spiro, what that is saying is, you're absolutely right, Sarita, but along with that, there needs to be self-reflection. There needs to be a vision that says, okay, like the process of deconstruction can't simply be, yeah, we're not going to read any of the classics, or it is not necessary to read the classics. You can do whatever you want. You can work on any research project you want, but you have to define your goals and you have to figure out what it is that you're contributing to the humanities. That part is crucial, right? So when we embrace digital humanities, particularly coming from a minority serving institution, we are beginning from a point where we are saying, look, there is an inequitable distribution of resources. But our embracing of digital humanities then has to transcend that inequality and go, here's how we are radicalizing or radically rethinking how we do work, so that it's not like, oh, in an unequal terrain, we are doing the best we can. We are saying we are doing work that is innovative in any terrain. It is recognizing the unequal terrain, but it is still innovative. Right. And that's absolutely, I mean, look, that's why if you do good work, Yale and Harvard will come knocking and say, oh, now we're going to give you a scholarship. And that happens every day. One of our students, another Sarita, went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and they loved her because of the perspective that she brought, the experiences that she brought, the ideas that she brought, the out-of-the-box thinking that she brought. She was extremely uncomfortable because she felt, hey, they had an idea of what role I would play at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. Right. That is, I had a purpose. I was bringing a certain perspective, and it made her uncomfortable. Right. I can actually remind me, I have a recording of Sarita when she did an online presentation, and she talked about her experiences. And you might find that very, very interesting, in relation to this conversation.
Definitely, yes.
Nadia, any questions? Is this making sense? Is this like a lot of information?
It is a lot of information, but I'm starting to actually kind of understand it, because when we had our first meeting, I didn't really quite get it, but now I'm like, okay, I kind of get it now. And I'm also looking at those like projects, like other digital humanities projects, to kind of like get an insight on like how they work and everything, like what people do for them.
Let me give you an example, and see again, practical examples, right? So every university makes, because the university has certain resources, there are a certain number of students and faculty, so it can strike deals with companies to make certain softwares available to students. So TAMOC softwares. So these are the softwares that are available to us. Hang on. Secure file transfer, banner. Maybe they've basically taken that out completely. Because there used to be a place where you could, it would list the softwares that you could buy. And what I wanted to show you is within the system, you can do a search and it will show you the list of softwares that are generally available. But then you can delimit the softwares by institution. And so if you go to Texas A&M College Station, you have access to 50 different softwares. The moment you go to Texas A&M University, Kingsville, the only software that we had access to was Camtasia, which is a video editing software. And for statistics and mathematics, there was a statistical analysis software. So there was only one software available, right? That is, even the system doesn't negotiate for all the institutions because they have to have this unequal distribution of resources because College Station is the flagship and Texas A&M University Kingsville is one of the institutions within the system. But when Amy Earhart is going to do the workshop, and we were discussing, and with a lot of digital humanities projects, we always talk about the software that you can pay for, but then the alternative free version. Now, the free version might have some limited capabilities, but you can use it to meet your needs. You see what I'm trying to get at? That is, digital humanities, a lot of the conversation is an acknowledgement of unequal distribution of resources and saying, okay, what are innovative and creative ways by which we can overcome those limitations? Right. I'll find it, but yeah, it's really shocking. And I've actually had conversations with people in the system saying, when it comes to online software, why is it that we can't negotiate for the entire system? Well, a student at College Station should be getting more than a student at A&M Kingsville. That's their philosophy. Why else would you want to go to College Station and not A&M Kingsville?
Exactly. If they have the same resources.
Do they pay more per class than we do?
The tuition is different. The tuition structure may be different. I would have to look into that. But also,
I mean, I was gonna say, because if we pay the same thing, then what's the difference?
Because it's, A&M Kingsville is a smaller institution. As I said, College Station is the flagship. It has a reputation. Our library systems are different. The databases, they have access to more databases and more resources, more ebooks. Yeah, it's how this university system works. But then Digital Humanities says, Carla, your idea of digital humanities and service dogs, the culture of service dogs in the community, if nobody has done that project, you're doing something innovative, we will find through the Digital Humanities Network, we will find you access to the resources and the tools that you need without you having to, without you getting limited by the cost. Right. And that's the innovative, and also, but at the same time, the work that you're going to do, ideally, the purpose isn't to monetize it. The purpose is to openly share that research, not only with other academics, but also people in the community. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. Any other questions? So don't forget the activities. Don't forget the readings for next week. And hey, if you have any follow-up questions, just email them to me. If you would like to, you can even set up, I know that Carla and I are going to meet, but as you're thinking through your digital project topic, set up an appointment with me, brainstorm your project idea, and then I can help you sort of get all the sort of, I can help you formulate your proposal, right? I can help you narrow down the scope. I can help you look at some digital resources, some digital tools that you might use. So I can help you envision your project. Okay.